from New York One News, in association with the New York Times, this is New York Close-Up.
I'm Sam Roberts of the New York Times, and welcome to New York Close-Up. In a moment, more news about the expanding labor support for Mayor Michael Bloomberg. We'll go to the New York Times newsroom, talk with editorial board member Carolyn Curiel about that story. Then we'll talk with the writer Stacey Horn, author of The Restless Sleep, Inside New York City's Cold Case Squad. And we'll preview this Sunday's city section of the New York Times with the writer Jerome Charron and the subject of his article, the architect Michael Avramides. His mission is to design apartment buildings he would live in himself. But these are for lower-income New Yorkers. First,
your depression. Call 212-241-5880.
Welcome back to New York Close-Up. Joining us now, the writer Jerome Charron and the urban architect Michael Avramides. He and his apartment projects, the subject of Mr. Charron's article in Sunday's New York Times City section. How did you find Michael Avramides, and why did he strike you so?
Well, I was friendly with Michael's wife because she did the jackets for my books, and once we went up to the Bronx and she showed me the building, you know, Casella Plaza, and I was just completely blown away by it, that someone could be so involved with this sense of detail. I mean, for senior citizens, this was not even a middle class, you know, a project. This was something for poorer people, and it had such a lovely sense of detail. I wanted to live there myself. I wanted to knock on the door.
You're too young, though.
No, I'm not too young.
Michael, why this sense of detail? Why in low-cost, affordable housing, what some would call public housing, why focusing on detail that has often been overlooked?
Well, it was important to me to understand what was going to make a difference to the seniors. And I realized early on that in order to get a direction that I should look at what wasn't working. And what wasn't working was the institutional look of many of these senior housing projects. So the aim was to work in the opposite direction, to get away from institutional and look at the details. And I also tried to replicate some of the areas in the Bronx that had been familiar to seniors as they were growing up. So there's some Art Deco details that I hoped would help them with the transition from wherever they were to this new building that didn't look so new.
And as Jerome said, among other things, different floors, different colors, so people would remember where they are, which sounds simple enough, but not really.
Yeah, some things like that are really easy to accomplish. And one of the things that I'm proud of is the double-height lobby. And it didn't seem doable for low-income housing to have a lobby that looked like it came out of a hotel. But I was able to convince the powers that be that we weren't building anything there. We were creating space, and it didn't cost additional money. So we ended up with a double-height lobby.
Now, how much of a difference does this actually make to the occupants? It makes a difference to architects. It makes a difference to critics. It makes a difference to people who write about it. What about to the people who live there?
Well, you know it does. People, I guess, we take it for granted in the business of creating housing for low-income tenants, that they're sort of a captive audience and they should just appreciate anything that they're given. But you know when they come to you after the fact, after they've moved in, and they are, we've gone beyond their expectations, that you must have succeeded at something. And I'm really proud of that.
Jerome, do you see that too, that people who are living there actually notice there is something different?
Sam, I'm a little bit disturbed by your question, because if I asked you whether you would like to live there, you'd be interested in these details. So why should we say, well, do the people living there, are they really concerned about it? They have to be concerned about it. It's a human environment. And it seems to me that if I say, and I'm not fooling, I was able to go through the housing, look at the walls, look at the way that they were laid out, I would be very happy to live there myself, and also from what you see outside the window, because the view is extremely important. So we can't think of low income, middle income. We can only think of an environment where all of us would want to live.
Although, as Michael said in the article, he was dealing with people who were renovating their kitchens, renovating their bathrooms, and now he's dealing with people who are just happy to have a kitchen for the first time, which makes a big difference. What do you want people to come away from living in these apartments? What impression, what feeling do you want them to have?
Well, we as architects can really affect the everyday lives of just about everybody in the city by the man-made, what's referred to as a man-made environment. We can make them happy because they have a place to go home to that we take for granted sometimes, just having that home sweet home place in our hearts or in reality to return to. But giving somebody who may have been sharing a space with a neighbor or a relative their very own home, so to speak, is incredibly important. It's important for all of us to have our own space. So that's what we give them.
What struck you most about some of Michael's buildings?
Well, I visited the Freeman Gardens, which is the building that's going up. When will it be up, Michael? In August, September?
It should be done by the end of the year.
Yeah, and the fact that it had this glass tower, which was an incredible detail that went all the way from the ground floor above the roof. And it's something you wouldn't find anywhere else. So I'm just struck by the visual design. It's something that I grew up with, a sense of design, and I really felt that there was a kind of lyricism here that was absent in the neighborhood, and that it would bring back a kind of rhythm that's essential.
And as you said, you used to go up or still go up on the roofs of buildings to get a sense of the perspective of the neighborhood. But as Jerome said in the story, you don't have to bring dog biscuits with you anymore. Why did you used to bring dog biscuits?
We've run into pit bulls occasionally, and drug dealers use that was their protection of choice for keeping people off the roofs. And sometimes we find ourselves face to face with an aggressive animal, and a doggy bone would do the trick.
You grew up in Brooklyn, went to City College, you worked as a draftsman for Philip Johnson. Why did you move into this much more direct, hands-on, almost public service part of the profession?
Well, actually, I did work with Philip Johnson, and I was also working with the minority architect Harry Simmons at the time, who worked on the AT&T building. And I did a lot of low-income housing with Harry. But I had worked my way through City College as a social worker, so I was familiar with a lot of the neighborhoods I'm dealing with now. And don't forget, City College instills, because they don't charge much, they instill in their students an obligation to return to the city and its problems and work within its environs. So I had that instilled in me from social work and from also City College.
I hate to ask, which clients are easier to deal with?
Well, the Park Avenue clients were generally concerned about whether a light switch was crooked. And now I'm pleased to say the clients I have are just very grateful that they have a working light switch.
Thank you both for joining us. Michael Avramides, the architect, Jerome Charon, writer of the story in the City section of Sunday's New York Times. And we'll get the headlines from tomorrow's New York Times right after the following messages.